sings the praise of Jesus' name. Oh, that with yonder sacred throng we at his feet may fall, we'll join the everlasting song and crown him Lord of all. We'll join the everlasting song and crown him Lord of all. His name is Jesus, risen Lamb for sinners slain. His name is Jesus. All creation sings the praise of Jesus' name.
Good morning. Please stand and sing with us.
You're the God of this city. You're the King of these people. You're the Lord of this nation. You are. You're the light in the darkness. You're the hope to the hopeless. You're the peace to the restless. You are. There is no one like our God. There is no one like our God. Greater things have yet to come. Greater things are still to be done in this city. Greater things have yet to come. Greater things are still to be done here. You're the God of this city. You're the King of these people. You're the Lord of this nation. You are. You're the light in the darkness. You're the hope to the hopeless. You're the peace to the restless. You are. There is no one like our God. Oh, there is no one like our God. Greater things have yet to come. Greater things are still to be done in this city. Greater things have yet to come. Greater things are still to be done here. You're the light in the darkness. You're the hope to the hopeless. You're the peace to the restless. You are. There is no one like our God. Oh, there is no one like our God. Greater things have yet to come. Greater things are still to be done in this don't have a job, don't pay your bills, won't buy you a home, Beverly Hills. Won't fix your life in 5 easy steps. Ain't the law of the land or the government, but it's all you need. And love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm. And I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. It's waiting for you, knocking at your door. Every moment of truth when your heart is floored, and you're on your knees, and love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm. And I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. This is the first day of the rest of your life. This is the first day of the rest of your life. 'Cause even in the dark, you can still see the light. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. This is the first day of the rest of your life. This is the first day of the rest of your life. 'Cause even in the dark, you can still see the light. It's gonna be alright. It's gonna be alright. And love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm. And I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone. And love will hold us together, make us a shelter to weather the storm. And I'll be my brother's keeper, so the whole world will know that we're not alone.
I apologize for that. Loud, obnoxious noise. Last week, Juan, I see, he changed my notes here. Did you know Moses' real name is Juan? Did you know that? His first name is Juan. His name is Juan Moses Castillo. But Juan Moses Castillo. But he goes by Moses. So last week, Juan Moses Castillo talked to us about wisdom. And we heard about pre-conventional wisdom, conventional wisdom, and post-conventional wisdom. And I know what you're thinking. You weren't here. But I watched it on YouTube. Yeah, did you know all our sermons are on YouTube? It's true, they are. If you ever want to go reference something, or you're just like, I need to rehear a good sermon, because I know you all think that throughout the week, right? Go on YouTube and search somebody else's sermons, and then if you want to hear a mediocre sermon, search mine. All right. Look at this. I kind of feel comfortable holding this one, though. Oh, well. Conventional wisdom, I suppose. So we heard that wisdom is when you take the knowledge you have of the world and you enact it, right? So pre-conventional wisdom, a child, for instance, takes the knowledge they have of the world, which is basically that everything exists for their own immediate good right then. And so if a parent says, don't cross the street, they say, why not? I can do what I want, right? They push up against it because the only knowledge they have is their very limited scope of reference. And then there's conventional wisdom, which is the knowledge that we all share as a society. And it's this idea of the conventions, the societal norms, the way it's always been done. These could be encoded in law. They could just be unwritten law, but law they are nonetheless. They are the way we move through the world as a society, as groups, as communities, the things that we just always know to do. And then he told us about post-conventional wisdom. When you can see, because of maturity, because of new knowledge you've gained, because of an outside voice speaking to you, you can see, look, conventional wisdom has its benefits, right? Society is structured orderly. We can wear our seatbelts was the reference that you gave, I think. You get in a car crash, it's good, right? Pre-conventional wisdom says, well, I don't need a seatbelt, I do what I want. I have to admit I'm guilty of that sometimes. No one's going to tell me what to do, right? I'm not wearing a seatbelt. That's just pre-conventional wisdom. That's just me being an idiot. But sometimes we can look at conventional wisdom and be like, okay, the norm here actually is hurting more people than it's helping. Or maybe it's helping the most people, but there's a group that's still being left out because of these conventional norms. And so we can have the clarity of thought to say, no, I'm not going to do it that way. Even though that's how it's always been done, even though that's what we've normally always known, I'm not doing it that way. The gospel writers were very intentional to show Jesus as always enacting this post-conventional wisdom, always bumping up against the conventions, specifically the religious and political conventions of his time. It wasn't just a lack of maturity. It wasn't rebellion for rebellion's sake. Jesus' whole idea can be summed up in his often used phrase, you have heard it said, but I say to you. He knew the conventional wisdom. He understood it. You've heard it said. You've heard it explained this way. I know what's there. I know conventional wisdom. I'm not foreign to it. I don't not understand it. But I say to you, we can move past it. We can do more. We can do better than what we've been told. Even from the earliest story we have of Jesus, the gospel writers are trying to paint the picture that he's about moving us past conventional wisdom into a post-conventional wisdom. Remember when they went to Jerusalem as a family when Jesus was a boy, around 12 years old. And it's time to leave, go back to Galilee, so the family packs up, and they're in their caravan, and suddenly, about a day into the journey, Mary and Joseph realize, Jesus isn't with us. Our son's not here. Where is he? So they're asking, is he with his cousins? Is he with his friends? Where is he? They're asking everyone. Everyone's like, no, we haven't seen him either. We haven't seen him. So they just turn around and start going back to Jerusalem. I mean, what's racing through Mary's mind, right? Wolves got him. Robbers got him. Remember the Good Samaritan story? Dangerous thing to be alone, especially as a 12-year-old. She's probably expecting to find Jesus dead on the side of the road. So she goes back, and they see Jesus in the temple. He just stayed in Jerusalem. He never went back with them. And they say, Jesus, what are you doing? We couldn't find you. Where were you? And he says, didn't you know I'd be about my Father's business? I'm here among people that are trying to figure this God thing out, who want to best understand Torah so that we can know how to live in this world. Didn't you know I'd be doing that? No, Jesus, we didn't know you'd be doing that. We thought you'd be with your family because that's what children do. We thought you were going to follow us home. Of course we didn't think you were going to stay here and be about your Father's business. I always do this, right, where I tell you like my little imagination of these stories. In this one, I like to picture Mary saying, I was so scared, Jesus. I didn't know where you were. I thought you may got eaten by a bear. I thought robbers got you. You don't stay somewhere and not tell people. That's just not how things are done. And I picture Jesus saying, you've heard it said that you don't tell people. And then I picture Mary, like the tough Jewish mother, interrupting me. Don't you use that line on me, boy, right? Like, we're not going there. You can say that to your friends. But seriously, though, that story points out that Jesus was the kind of person who was always willing to circumvent convention if it meant moving to something bigger and better. And as we saw last week, the parables of Jesus show this in a dramatic fashion. Story after story that he tells, subverting the conventional wisdom of his time. So today we're going to be looking at kind of a part 2 to this post-conventional wisdom. And it's not really part 2 as much as it's just like riffing on what Moses said. Like, the title of the sermon could be Riffing on Post-Conventional Wisdom. Just play with it a little bit. We're going to look at a text that it gives us another example of Jesus addressing wisdom and moving us to a post-conventional view of it. It's from Matthew chapter 12, verse 38. So if you'd like to turn there, if you have a paper Bible, which very few people do, right? I got to get back to putting it on the screen. Do you like when I put it on the screen? Yes or no? Because if it's no, I'm not going to do it. Yes, all right. Going back up on the screen. But for now, you can listen or read along. Matthew chapter 12, verse 38. Then some of the Pharisees and teachers of the law said to him, Teacher, we want to see a sign from you. He answered, A wicked and adulterous generation asks for a sign. But none will be given it except the sign of the prophet Jonah. For as Jonah was 3 days and 3 nights in the belly of a huge fish, so the Son of Man will be 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth. The men of Nineveh will stand up at the judgment with this generation and condemn it. For they repented at the preaching of Jonah, and now something greater than Jonah is here. And the queen of the south will rise at the judgment with this generation and condemn it, for she came from the ends of the earth to listen to Solomon's wisdom. And now something greater than Solomon is here. What's going on in this conversation? What's happening? It starts with the Pharisees saying, Give us a sign. What's a sign? What does that mean? A sign is like the quintessential conventional wisdom thing right here. And they're thinking, the Pharisees thinking, and the religious leaders thinking, and even the people of Israel's thinking, if you're a prophet, if you're sent by God to give a message to the people, you have to be able to prove your credentials. How do we know you're not just making this up? How do we know you're actually from God? Do a sign, right? The Pharisees aren't like out of bounds here. They're playing by the rules right now. If you think about the stories in the Old Testament, Moses says, what do I do if Pharaoh says, I don't know, who's this I am that I am? I don't care about him. Why should I listen to you? What does God say? Throw your staff on the ground, it'll turn into a snake, right? Okay, that's weird. So then he does it. And then what happens? They throw their staffs on the ground, the prophets of Pharaoh, and theirs turn into a snake. But then Moses' snake eats their snakes. Or think about Elijah and the prophets of Baal, and they both set up altars. Who gets to say they're the real God? Who's the real God? The one who burns up the altar. Time and time again, there's a sign given. And basically the idea is the person with the best magic trick is approved by God. That's the conventional wisdom. That's what they're asking for. Do something crazy. Do something crazy, Jesus. Call fire down from heaven, right? Elijah did it. Certainly, if you're in his tradition as you're claiming, you can do it. Moses turned his staff into a snake. Can you turn your staff into 2 snakes, right? Like, we want you to prove yourself to us. Prove to us that you are accepted by God. We have this demand on us as well, too, right? We're not prophets who are challenging the religious structures and then being demanded that we do a miraculous sign to prove our worth. But we have people who always are demanding of us that we prove our worth to them. What can you show me that will make me approve of you? Maybe that voice comes from inside yourself. What gives me the right to do this? I'm not creative enough to have good ideas. Or I'm not smart enough to go after that different job. Or I don't have my life together enough to be able to give that person advice, so I'm not going to say anything. I don't make enough money to fit in with that group. I'm not interesting enough for people to want a relationship with me. Wherever it's coming from, we're always asked for a sign. Prove your worth, prove your value, prove yourself to us. But Jesus at this point in his life is starting to have his fill of signs. His response is great. You want a sign? Yeah, well, that's what we asked for. You sure you want a sign? You're not getting a sign. All you're getting is the sign of Jonah, which is like a big oh snap moment. But we lose some of it because we don't know all the background and context. So I'm going to try to bring that in for you so that next time you read the sign of Jonah, you'll be like, oh, he did it. I can't believe he just gave him that. What is the sign of Jonah? Jesus describes it briefly. He says, just as Jonah went into the sea, into the belly of the fish after being swallowed for 3 days, so I, the Son of Man, will be in the heart of the earth for 3 days. Why is Jesus invoking Jonah? Why is he invoking this story of a man swallowed by a fish for 3 days? How does this fit into post-conventional wisdom? The story of Jonah is actually all about the clash of conventional and post-conventional wisdom. Jonah is the story of a person's journey of moving from conventional wisdom to post-conventional wisdom, and the struggle that comes with that, the internal struggle. So, quick refresher of the story of Jonah. Jonah's a prophet. You can read his story in the book of Jonah, in the Old Testament. He's a prophet. He gets a call from God telling him to go to Nineveh. Nineveh is the center of the Assyrian Empire. And like any empire, Assyria does all the bad empire-y stuff, right? They kill people. They use violence to enact their rule. In fact, one of their greatest kings, actually their probably greatest king, Sennacherib, bragged at one point about his wars with Babylon, and he said, its inhabitants, young and old, I did not spare, and with their corpses I filled the streets of this city. Right? So Nineveh's a beautiful place. The corpses of Babylonians just filling the streets, right? Like, I don't want to visit there in the summer. There's Babylonian corpses everywhere. And then Sennacherib also said about the Hebrew people, Hezekiah of Judah, who had not submitted to my yoke, him I shut up in Jerusalem, his royal city, like a caged bird. Earthworks I threw up against him, and anyone coming out of his city gate I made pay for his crime. His cities, which I plundered, I had cut off from his land. So Assyria was very proud of the fact that they ravage people's economies, devastate people's cities, and kill young and old alike. This is the country Jonah's sent to. Because God tells them, this destruction has to end. This violence has to be assuaged. Go proclaim to Nineveh they have to give up these violent ways and turn to justice and mercy, right? The same call that was always put out by the prophets to Israel, the same call God's putting out to Nineveh here. Think for a second that waging wars, filling the streets with the corpses of your enemies, sieging cities so that they can't have access to their resources. This is conventional wisdom. This is what empires do. In this time, this is exactly the right way to run a country. Even King Hezekiah, the enemy of Sennacherib, ran Israel the same way. Now, Jonah runs away because he's embracing conventional wisdom. He says, they're the enemies. I don't want them to seek justice and mercy. I just want us to think we're seeking justice and mercy so we can judge them and look down on them and, hopefully eventually beat them in a battle, right? That's his ultimate goal. Like, I want to dominate them. I don't want them to join us in this justice and mercy thing. So he runs away. He gets on a ship, sails the opposite direction where he's supposed to be going, and a huge storm arises. Now, do you remember your ancient Near East cosmology. Talked about it a lot here. What is water? What is sea? Chaos, death, uncreation, right? The realm of the dead. The Spirit hovered over the waters, right? Before creation, it was just black, inky, destructive waters, right? For the Babylonians, the goddess Tiamat, the goddess of water, chaos, destruction. She has to be killed before creation can arise. This is what the conventional wisdom is. So everyone on the boat, when the storm starts, including Jonah, assumes that the storm is because the gods are angry with them. So they all come up with the same plan, Jonah and the pagan sailors alike. We have to offer a sacrifice, right? Conventional wisdom. We must offer a sacrifice to the angry gods. And so what do? Classic scapegoat. Like we talked about, the crowd picks one man, Jonah. In this case, he offers himself willingly, but it's still the crowd versus the one. They human sacrifice him to the gods of chaos. Literally, like that's what's happening. This is a sacrificial scene. They throw him in the water, human sacrifice this man, and the storm stops. It works. Human sacrifice works. We can kill one person for everyone's peace. Jonah is subsequently swallowed by a big fish, essentially a sea monster, and you have to hear this in the context of the original hearers. This is like horror movie stuff. Like, he's thrown into the realm of the dead, chaos, the opposite of creation. He's swallowed by a sea monster. The very same big fish that God himself in Job says he has to contend with, right? Like, the most terrible, demonic monster you can imagine swallows Jonah and drags him to the depths of hell. Like, that's what's happening here. If we wanted to make a movie that would evoke the same emotional response as would have been evoked by reading this for an ancient Israelite, we would make it like gory, and there'd be fire and demons, and it would just be frightening, right? This is what is happening to Jonah. So as he experiences that, obviously it's very heavy stuff, he realizes, all right, I'm done playing these games. I don't want to do the whole be sacrificed to the gods, dragged down to the depths of hell. I want justice. I want mercy. I want to follow the God who originally called me. So what happens? The fish spits him up, which essentially is like raising from the dead. So he goes to Nineveh and he preaches to the people, and they turn from their wicked ways, and they embrace justice, and they embrace peace, and they repent of their violent ways. And Jonah can't handle it. Ultimately, he can't buy into post-conventional wisdom. He sticks with his conventional wisdom, and he just wants the people to suffer and die, and he's mad at God for extending mercy. Now, you probably have already started making connections between that story and Jesus applying it to himself. But we're going to tie it all together. But first, keep that in your mind. Keep Jonah's story in your mind. And we're going to do a little background on this context of Jesus saying, I will show you no sign other than the sign of Jonah. If you look back in Matthew, a couple chapters before, in chapter 9, Jesus raises a girl from the dead. And Matthew says that news of this spread throughout the region. So Jesus is famous now. Everyone knows the guy who raised the girl from the dead. And we can be pretty sure that Jesus is already starting to see the downside of this, because the very next story, after he raises that girl from the dead, he heals a blind man. And he says to the blind man, see that nobody knows about this. Why not? Why can't people know? It's a good thing, man. Giving his sight back to somebody. First, you're raising someone from the dead. Now you're giving someone your sight. You should be spreading the word on that. I mean, Jesus, you got to, heal that guy on a Facebook Live, right? Did you take a selfie with him afterwards of the blind man, reading a book? And then, hashtag healed, hashtag kingdom of God is here, right? You got to go viral with this stuff, Jesus. What terrible PR to just say, don't tell anybody about this. But Jesus understood something bigger going on, and the problem with signs is that soon people just see the sign, not as a sign, but just as the thing itself. And they just want another trick. And they want it to be better than the last time, right? Maybe Jesus did that. Maybe like, man, I raised someone from the dead. Healing a blind person, it's not going to impress people as much. Right? Don't tell anyone about that one, because like just keep telling the dead person story. No, I don't think that's what it is. I think he understands that signs will let you down. Demanding that somebody always proves themselves in a more dramatic fashion is unsustainable. Remember when Jesus says to the crowd that he feeds a large multitude with just a few loaves of bread, and he says, I know you're just here for the food. I know you're just here to eat, right? Like, this bread, I'm trying to show you something else, like I am life, I am the bread of life. I know you just need to eat. And Jesus was fine with that, right? Like, he had compassion on them. He fed the people who needed to eat. Feeding hungry people is a good thing. But Jesus understood that the message was falling on deaf ears. At some point, he realizes the signs are just becoming tricks to these people. There's nothing here that they can grab onto. In fact, Matthew says that. And he says, this is why Jesus spoke in parables. And he goes on to recount that Jesus said, the reason I speak in parables is I want the message to get through to people. And if I try to do it through signs and wonders, all the people see the signs and wonders. If I do it through these really hard to understand stories, it forces people to listen. It forces people to try to figure out what I'm saying and truly interact with ideas. So then we move from chapter 9, where Jesus does these miracles and says, don't tell anybody, into chapter 11, and Jesus is talking to a crowd, and they're discussing John the Baptist. John was a prophet who began proclaiming the kingdom of God, and then Jesus came after him and took up the mantle. It's kind of like an Elisha situation. But King Herod and the religious establishment didn't like John, so they killed him. So Jesus says, since the kingdom of God is always challenging violence, it's always constantly under attack from violence. And then he says to the religious leaders, you've always killed the prophets, and now you're doing it again. And then he says this to them in verse 16 of chapter 11. To what can I compare this generation? They're like children sitting in the marketplaces, calling out to others, we played the pipe for you, you did not dance. We sang a dirge, you did not mourn. For John came neither eating nor drinking, and they said, he has a demon. The Son of Man came eating and drinking, and they said, he's a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners. But wisdom is proved right by her deeds. So Jesus says, we can't win for losing with you people, right? We play a sad song, you don't cry. Right? John, he comes into the wilderness. He doesn't live with other people. He doesn't wear fancy clothes. He wears like itchy, scratchy camel hair suits. He doesn't eat steaks and lamb chops. He eats locusts and wild honey. His hair is probably all like mangled and matted. Just classic crazy man prophet wilderness guy. Doesn't drink alcohol. It's against the vow that his parents had him take when he was a child. And they say, this guy's out of his mind. He's nuts. He's crazy. He's deranged. He has a demon. Clearly, he's living amongst the mountains. Classic demon move. Okay, well, let's try to play a happy song for you then. Let's proclaim the kingdom of God by going to parties, drinking alcohol, eating nice foods, wearing normal clothes. Oh, he's a lazy glutton drunkard. He just hangs out with sinners all the time. How do you want us to give you the message? We can't do it with John. I can't do it the way I live. You won't listen to anything, and that's the point. Jesus tells them, you won't hear it. At this point, your ears are stopped up. There's nothing I can do. Calling fire down from heaven won't do anything. Healing a blind man isn't going to do a thing. No sign can possibly convince you. Therefore, the only sign you'll ever get is the sign of Jonah. So let's tie that together. Jonah died, essentially, right? Brought to the depth of death. He was consumed by conventional wisdom. The gods will be pleased if we get rid of this troublemaker. Does that sound familiar? Just one chapter before Jesus says this, in Matthew 11, the Pharisees are already plotting to kill him. Jesus is saying, my sign to you is that I'm going to die, because of all your signs. Your wisdom, your conventions, your standard ways of doing things are so wrong that I simply can't fit into them, and you will be forced to kill me because of it. I will ascend to the depths of death in an attempt to show your wisdom as false. And by the way, he says, Nineveh, right, who on paper should have killed Jonah, right, an enemy coming into their country, someone who's against their gods and is teaching a different God, which is it's a very political move back then. They should have just been like, who's this guy? Let's fill the streets with his corpse. But they didn't. So Jesus says, Nineveh condemns you, right? This pagan, Gentile nation that you love to hate, listen to post-conventional wisdom, listen to true wisdom. And you, who should be on paper listening to wisdom, are going to kill me. The queen of the south rises up and listens to Solomon. Again, a pagan Gentile ruler, listening to the wisdom. And Jesus says, my wisdom's even better than Solomon's. Like, I'm trying to bring us to the next step, right? Solomon got us where we needed to be. Proverbs is a tremendous book. But, let's go a step further. And all you want to do is kill me. So the Queen of Sheba, by her very existence, condemns you, shows you to be false. So no, you can't have a sign. The only sign is that there is no sign. That I will die on account of your desire for signs. That I will embrace my own destruction. I will embrace my own death so that you can understand you, my future followers, must die to conventional wisdom and be willing to embrace something bigger and something new. So where does that leave us? First, we have to realize there is no sign we have to perform. We can get wrapped up in asking for signs from people. I know I can. I ask for them for myself, too. What's the next big decision? What should I do in this life? Right? I have a new idea. I have a new passion. I'm not sure I should pursue it. People might not accept it. People might think it's a bad idea. It's stupid. They might think I'm not good enough to actually pursue it. If I choose a career that maybe brings me less money, but I feel that I believe in, maybe family and friends are going to look at me like I'm moving backwards, right? Maybe you took a few steps forward in life, and now you want to make a decision that looks like you're going backwards, but it's hard to make that decision because people will lose respect for you. You won't have credentials with people. Jesus shows us that when we look for approval from people, when we offer up signs to them, proving that we are accepted by God, proving that we are accepted by ourselves, trying to prove we are accepted by them, ultimately we bring more harm than good to ourselves and to our world. Which is why Jesus was willing to die to the signs. And we can do that too. We can live a life of freedom, free from striving after recognition, free from striving after approval, free even from striving after the approval that exists in our own minds. Secondly, I think that we need to hear the call from these passages to learn to listen to post-conventional wisdom. Because we have to be willing to always question or challenge any and all long-held conventions or tradition. It's not just for questioning's sake, though, right? Like, Jesus didn't just do things to make people mad. He saw something bigger. He saw something better. He saw something that could help more people than were being helped right now. This isn't pre-conventional wisdom. but it's always asking, does the long-held belief that we have right now, does it fit into true wisdom, which Jesus said, if you remember, I read it earlier, is proved by her deeds. Something is proved wise by the way it fleshes itself out in the world. Nothing was off the table for Jesus, and nothing should be off the table for us. If you hear yourself saying, well, that's the way it's always been done, just red flag it right there. That doesn't mean you get rid of it. That doesn't mean that it's bad. It doesn't mean that you immediately have to buck up against it. But ask yourself why you're saying that. Ask yourself if it's really that important that it's always been done that way. This is any area of life. Well, we've always done it that way. Well, I've always believed that. I've always thought that. Okay. Dive into that. Dig deep into that. And see if it's actually something that is proven right by the way it fleshes out. Wisdom is proven by her deeds. Wisdom is not proven by if, she can defend herself verbally. Wisdom is not proven if everyone agrees that's what she's always been. Wisdom is proven right by her deeds. The wise thing to do is to always challenge standing wisdom. This is the only way forward. And this is why, of course, as we always bring up, it's talked about as foolishness, right? The wisdom of Christ looks like foolishness to the world. The willingness to die to signs, the willingness to embrace destruction. And it's not probably going to be physical destruction for you like it was for Jesus, but to embrace the destruction of an ideal you've held, to embrace the destruction of a dream if it means moving to a bigger, better thing, to embrace the destruction of a relationship you thought was important to you, but was really unhealthy because of its demands. To embrace that kind of willingness to die to the things that are holding us back is true wisdom. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. It's interesting, isn't it, that he didn't say, I know the way, I have the truth. Listen to me, I have the truth. I can tell you the truth. Or, truth is found when you believe certain facts about me. He said, I am actually the embodiment of truth. I am actually the embodiment of the way, a form of existence. I am actually the embodiment of life itself, true, fulfilling life. Jesus also is called our wisdom. He himself is our wisdom, Paul says. Jesus is our post-conventional wisdom that undoes our conventional wisdom, and that is why we gather around this table. Because on the night that Jesus was betrayed, he took the bread and he broke it, and he said, this is my body that's broken for you. This is my body that's broken for you as I display to you the sign of Jonah. And then he took the cup and he said, this is my blood. And when you drink it, remember me. It's shed for you because I died to the wisdom of this world. This physical, tangible ritual we have is a reminder that what we do is we take Jesus the way, Jesus the truth, Jesus the life into ourselves, right? Just as we eat the bread, just as we drink the drink, that's the physical way of taking into ourselves. But we spiritually, mentally, emotionally, communally, however you want to say it, enter into Jesus' life. Jesus' life enters into us. Jesus' way of existence. Jesus the truth. The post-conventional wisdom enters into us, and we can share it with the world around us. So please come up as the music plays. First, take the bread. Eat it when you take it. Take the juice after that. Drink it when you take it. Go back to your seats. We'll all sing together when everyone has eaten and everyone has drank. I forgot I'm starting. Please come forward.
Come out of sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken-hearted, let rescue begin. Come find your mercy, oh sinner, come kneel. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your burdens, lay down your heart. Come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who have strayed. Come sit at the table. Come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't cure. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame. All who are broken, lift up your face. Oh, wanderer, come home. You're not too far. So lay down your burdens, lay down your heart. Come as you are. Come as you are. Fall in His arms. Come as you are. There's joy for the morning. Oh, sinner, be still. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. Earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens, lay down your shame.
Go in peace and in post-conventional wisdom. You are dismissed.